The sky over Boston was heavy with gray clouds, casting a muted light on the city cemetery. It was a somber day, the kind where the weight of sorrow seemed to settle into every corner. Gathered in the cemetery, a sea of black clothing contrasted starkly against the drab backdrop. They had come to bid farewell to Robert, a man whose life had been as grand as his real estate empire. His departure left a void that no one could quite fill. Catherine, now in her late 60s, stood by Robert's grave, her face etched with profound sadness. She looked lost in the crowd, a fragile figure draped in black. Her eyes, once bright with the spark of adventure and love, now reflected a deep and abiding loneliness. Robert, who had climbed from humble beginnings to become a titan in the real estate world, had left her with more than just memories. He had left her a fortune, $50 million in inheritance. Yet, it was the emotional void, not the financial security, that loomed largest in her heart. Their children, Jane and Michael, were there too. Jane, at 42, was a blend of concern and stoicism. Her eyes often shifted to her mother, worried about the woman who had once been a vibrant, adventurous spirit. Michael, 38, stood beside her, a reassuring presence. He and his family had come to support Catherine in their own way, but even their collective efforts seemed unable to bridge the chasm left by Robert's death. In the days that followed, Catherine found herself struggling with the daily routine. The once celebrated woman of social gatherings and lively conversation had become a shadow of her former self. Her friends and family tried to reach out, but Catherine found it difficult to engage. Her vibrant past with Robert, filled with travels and joyous moments, now seemed like a distant dream. She was increasingly distancing herself from those who cared for her, enveloped in a cocoon of solitude. Her family, recognizing her plight, decided to implement a visitation schedule to ensure she wasn't left alone too much. Michael, along with his wife and children, visited on Mondays. Jane and her family came on Tuesdays. Adam, the youngest, took Thursdays and Fridays. Despite these efforts, Catherine remained deeply lonely, her days blending into one another with an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The only breaks in her isolation came from her grandson, Daniel. The lively young man used Catherine's backyard for his weekend parties. The laughter and music from these gatherings were often the only sounds that broke through Catherine's quiet solitude. It was at one of these parties that Catherine first noticed him, a young man named Luke. Luke, at 22, was strikingly handsome. He had an easy confidence and an air of charm that reminded Catherine of Robert in his youth. It was Luke's casual approach, his way of blending into the festivities while still seeming somehow apart, that caught Catherine's attention. When he approached her, their conversation started with simple pleasantries, but soon delved into deeper waters. Luke expressed his admiration for Catherine's wisdom and grace, and she found herself unexpectedly drawn to him. Their conversations grew more frequent, and Catherine began to feel a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. Luke's attentiveness and interest seemed to awaken a part of her that had lain dormant. It wasn't long before their meetings became a highlight in Catherine's week. She looked forward to their talks, to the moments when she could once again feel the warmth of companionship. Yet, as Catherine's spirits began to lift, her children grew concerned. They noticed the change in her mood and the frequency with which she spoke of Luke. The concern turned into suspicion as they wondered about Luke's intentions. Catherine reassured them of her happiness, explaining that Luke brought a sense of joy and connection she had been missing. Despite her reassurances, Jane and Michael remained uneasy, their apprehension lingering like an unspoken shadow. In a surprising twist, Catherine announced her plans to marry Luke. The news was met with a mix of shock and disbelief from her family. They struggled to reconcile the image of their mother with a man so much younger, and the impending marriage stirred a whirlpool of emotions. Despite their reservations, they began preparations for the wedding, their faces reflecting a complex blend of support and skepticism. As the wedding day approached, the atmosphere was charged with an uneasy mixture of anticipation and trepidation. The ceremony, though unconventional, was marked by Catherine's visible joy. She was radiant, a stark contrast to the grief-stricken widow who had stood by Robert's grave only weeks earlier. Her happiness was palpable, a beacon amidst the uncertainty. However, as Catherine embraced this new chapter, the seeds of doubt sown by her children began to take root. Their concerns were about to be validated in ways they could never have anticipated. Little did they know, the path ahead would unravel secrets and reveal intentions that would shake the very foundation of their family's future. The wedding day dawned bright and crisp, a stark contrast to the overcast skies that had marked Robert's funeral. Catherine, dressed in a flowing white gown that seemed to shimmer with a newfound vitality, was a vision of happiness. Her children, Jane and Michael, sat in the audience with strained smiles, their concern masked behind polite applause. The ceremony, held in the grand hall of their sprawling estate, was an unusual spectacle, but for Catherine, it was a moment of pure joy. Luke, dressed in a sleek black suit, stood beside Catherine at the altar. The disparity in their ages was stark, yet in this moment it seemed irrelevant. Catherine looked at Luke with a mixture of love and excitement, her eyes reflecting the hopes and dreams she had begun to rekindle. The guests watched with a mix of curiosity and apprehension, trying to absorb the surreal nature of the event. As the vows were exchanged, Jane and Michael exchanged glances, their unease growing. They had tried to voice their concerns to Catherine, but she had brushed them off, assuring them that Luke was genuine and that he made her happy. The ceremony concluded with cheers and congratulations, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of skepticism remained. The weeks following the wedding saw Catherine and Luke settled into their new life together. Catherine's spirits soared, buoyed by the presence of her young husband and the renewed sense of purpose he brought into her life. They traveled together, dined at luxurious restaurants, and indulged in activities that Catherine had long missed. To the outside world, it seemed as though Catherine had rediscovered her youthful zest for life. However, as the days passed, Jane and Michael's concerns deepened. They noticed subtle changes in their mother's behavior. Catherine seemed increasingly isolated from them, her interactions becoming more strained and defensive. It wasn't long before they began to suspect that Luke's intentions might not be as pure as he had portrayed. The turning point came when Jane decided to investigate Luke further. She discovered discrepancies in his background that raised alarm bells. Her investigation revealed that Luke had a history of financial troubles and questionable associations. Jane's findings were unsettling but not conclusive. She shared her concerns with Michael, who was equally troubled but unsure of how to confront his mother. Meanwhile, Daniel, Catherine's grandson, continued to host his parties in the backyard, the sound of music and laughter providing a temporary distraction from the growing tension. It was at one of these gatherings that Catherine first sensed a change in Luke's demeanor. He had become increasingly possessive and controlling, a shift that didn't escape Catherine's notice. One evening, Catherine stumbled upon a conversation between Luke and Daniel that sent chills down her spine. She overheard them discussing the estate and the substantial inheritance, $50 million that Catherine had received. The words scheme and plan were mentioned in hushed tones. Catherine's heart raced as she realized the gravity of the situation. Unable to ignore her suspicions any longer, Catherine decided to take action. She reached out to a private detective, a trusted professional who had previously helped her with legal matters. The detective, a shrewd and experienced investigator named Richard, began to look into Luke's background and his connection to Daniel. As the investigation progressed, Richard uncovered a troubling truth. Luke and Daniel were involved in a plot to gain control of Catherine's inheritance. The scheme was elaborate. Luke had been manipulating Catherine's emotions to gain her trust and, eventually, access to her fortune. Daniel had been orchestrating the plan from behind the scenes, using his parties and gatherings as a cover for his machinations. The revelation was a blow to Catherine, who felt betrayed by the very people she had welcomed into her life. Determined to protect her family's legacy, Catherine collaborated closely with Richard and the police to gather evidence. The investigation revealed that Luke had been preparing to make a move that would have left Catherine vulnerable and her inheritance compromised. The sense of betrayal was profound, but Catherine's resolve to confront the situation head-on grew stronger. The plan culminated in a dramatic showdown. Catherine, equipped with evidence of Luke's deceit, confronted him in a tense and emotional confrontation. Luke, cornered and exposed, attempted to escalate the situation. In a moment of desperation, he tried to suffocate Catherine, revealing the extent of his treachery. The police arrived just in time to intervene, arresting Luke and ensuring Catherine's safety. The confrontation was a jarring reminder of the dangers that lurked behind seemingly benign faces. Jane and Michael, horrified but relieved, gathered around their mother, providing the support she desperately needed. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Catherine faced the challenge of rebuilding trust and mending her fractured relationships. Her children, now more understanding of her plight, rallied around her, determined to support her as she navigated the fallout from the ordeal. The experience had been a harsh lesson, but it had also strengthened the bonds within the family. The weeks following Luke's arrest were a whirlwind of emotions for Catherine. The once vibrant atmosphere of her home was now filled with a somber tension. Luke's betrayal had left a deep scar, but Catherine's determination to reclaim her life and protect her family's legacy was unwavering. Jane and Michael, though shaken by the revelations, were resolute in their support for their mother. Catherine's first priority was to ensure that the $50 million inheritance was secure. With Richard's assistance, she took measures to safeguard her assets, making sure that all legal and financial arrangements were reinforced. The private detective's thorough investigation not only exposed Luke's deceit but also provided Catherine with a clearer understanding of how to protect herself from further schemes. During this time, Catherine found solace in reconnecting with her children. Jane and Michael visited more frequently, and their interactions became more heartfelt and genuine. Michael, who had been cautious and distant, opened up about his feelings of helplessness during the ordeal. "I never imagined it would come to this," he admitted one evening, as they sat around the dinner table. "I'm just glad you're safe, Mom." Jane, ever the concerned daughter, took on the role of mediator, helping to rebuild the family's emotional connections. She organized weekly family dinners, where they could talk openly and share their experiences. These gatherings became a cornerstone of their healing process. "We need to be there for each other more than ever," Jane said during one such dinner. "We've been through a lot, but we're stronger together." Despite the growing closeness within the family, Catherine still grappled with the emotional impact of the betrayal. She found herself reflecting on her past with Robert and the life they had built together. The once joyous memories were now tinged with a sense of loss. It was during one of her quiet moments of reflection that Catherine began to recognize the importance of her own resilience. She realized that, while the betrayal had hurt deeply, it was also an opportunity for growth and renewal. Determined to move forward, Catherine began engaging in activities she had once enjoyed. She took long walks in the garden, reconnected with old friends, and even started attending local community events. Her efforts to reclaim her sense of self were met with encouragement from her family. Jane and Michael supported her newfound interests, often joining her in these activities. They attended art exhibitions, theater performances, and even weekend getaways, rediscovering the joy in spending time together. One evening, as Catherine and Jane sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the horizon, Catherine shared her thoughts about the future. "I've realized that I need to focus on what truly matters," she said softly. "It's not just about the inheritance or the material things. It's about the love and support we have for each other." Jane nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of understanding and warmth. "We've come a long way, Mom. We've learned so much from all of this. We need to cherish every moment and support each other through thick and thin." The family's renewed commitment to one another was evident in their daily interactions. They made a conscious effort to stay connected and involved in each other's lives. Catherine's resilience was mirrored in her children's dedication to rebuilding their family bonds. They organized family outings, game nights, and spontaneous adventures, creating new memories to replace those marred by the recent turmoil. Catherine's relationship with her grandson, Daniel, also began to heal. Although Daniel had been part of the scheme, he expressed deep regret for his actions and sought forgiveness. Catherine, while initially hesitant, decided to give him a chance to make amends. She invited him to family gatherings, allowing him to rebuild trust through consistent, genuine efforts. "I know I've made mistakes," Daniel admitted during one family dinner. But I want to make things right. As the months passed, Catherine's home once again became a place of joy and warmth. The scars of betrayal were still present, but they no longer defined her. Instead, Catherine's focus was on embracing the present and looking forward to the future. Her strength and resilience had not only helped her overcome a difficult period, but had also brought her family closer together. In the end, Catherine's journey was a testament to the power of love, support, and resilience. The challenges she faced had strengthened her bond with her family, and the shared experiences had deepened their understanding of one another. As Catherine looked around at her family, Jane, Michael, Adam, and Daniel, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had faced adversity together and emerged stronger, ready to face whatever life might bring. Months had passed since the dramatic events that shook Catherine's life. The ordeal with Luke and Daniel had left deep marks, but Catherine's resilience and the unwavering support of her family had led them through a period of profound transformation. The family's newfound closeness was evident in every interaction and shared moment, and Catherine's home was once again filled with laughter and warmth. The once somber house now buzzed with activity as Catherine and her children organized a grand family reunion. It was not just a celebration of their renewed bond, but also a symbolic gesture of moving forward together. Catherine, dressed in a vibrant dress that she had carefully chosen to mark the occasion, looked around at her family with a mixture of pride and contentment. Jane was busy arranging flowers in the dining room, Michael was setting up the outdoor barbecue, and Adam was putting the finishing touches on a slideshow of family photos. Daniel, having proven his sincerity through consistent actions, was actively helping with the preparations. "It feels good to be part of something positive again," he said to Catherine as he carried a tray of drinks. Catherine smiled warmly at him. "It's good to have you here, Daniel. We're all moving forward together." As guests began to arrive, the atmosphere was filled with cheerful chatter and the aroma of delicious food. The family had invited close friends and neighbors, turning the event into a true celebration of love and renewal. Amidst the festivities, Catherine took a moment to reflect on how far they had come. The betrayal by Luke and Daniel had been painful, but it had also exposed the strength and resilience within her. Catherine's decision to focus on her family and embrace life's joys had not only helped her heal but had also strengthened the bonds among her loved ones. She looked at her children, Jane, Michael, and Adam, and saw a renewed sense of unity and purpose. During the evening's toast, Catherine stood up, her heart full of gratitude. "I want to thank each one of you for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady and warm. "The past year has been one of the most challenging times of my life, but it has also shown me the depth of our family's love and strength. We've faced difficulties, but we've come through them stronger and more connected." Her words were met with applause and cheers. Jane and Michael exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting their own pride in their mother's journey. "Here's to new beginnings," Jane said, raising her glass. "To family, to love, and to the future." The evening continued with laughter, music, and shared stories. As Catherine watched her family enjoying themselves, she felt a deep sense of peace. The scars from the past were still there, but they no longer dominated her life. Instead, she chose to focus on the present and the future, cherishing every moment with those she loved. As the night drew to a close, Catherine found herself sitting on the porch with Jane and Michael. The cool breeze and the starry sky provided a tranquil backdrop for their conversation. "I never thought I'd feel this content again," Catherine said softly. "But I do. I've learned that true happiness comes from the people we love and the moments we share." Jane placed a hand on her mother's shoulder. "We've all learned a lot this year, Mom. We've seen the importance of sticking together and supporting one another." Michael nodded in agreement. "And we've realized that, no matter what challenges come our way, we can overcome them as a family." Catherine smiled, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The $50 million inheritance, once a source of conflict and anxiety, had been secured and was now a symbol of their collective strength and resilience. The true treasure, she realized, was the love and support they had for each other. As they sat together under the night sky, Catherine felt a renewed sense of hope and optimism. The future was filled with possibilities, and she knew that with her family by her side, they could face whatever came their way. The story of Catherine's journey from loneliness to renewal was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of family bonds. In the end, it was not the inheritance or the material wealth that mattered most, but the love and support that had seen them through the darkest times. As the final notes of the evening's music played and the last guests departed, Catherine looked around her home with a sense of contentment. The challenges of the past had been overcome, and the future was bright. Surrounded by her loving family, Catherine felt truly happy, knowing that together, they could conquer any challenge life might present.